Sai Ram, pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Lord. Sai Ram to all. I was born in Bombay to a middle class Hindu family from Kerala. My father worked in a company in Bombay. As a child, I was very sickly. I had acute eosinophilia and I was under treatment every day. I had to go to the doctor and get some injections and medications. This continued till I was about 6 years old, and finally, my pediatrician suggested to my father that maybe a change of climate would help me get better. So, my father decided to send his family, my mom and my siblings, to Kerala, to a place called Trichur, which is in the middle of Kerala, very close to his ancestral home. So, we moved to Kerala while my father still stayed back in Bombay doing his job. We were put in schools in Kerala and all four of us studied there. In the year 1971, I had just completed my 10th standard or my SSLC examination as it is normally called, and I was waiting for my result. A few months prior to this, my father had a massive heart attack and he was advised complete bed rest. A friend of his, a Dr. Vincent, was treating him. He came home and checked his blood pressure and gave all the medications, and this was going on for a few months. My father was a very active man, fond of gardening and outdoor activities, and this completely depressed him. One day, while I was sitting in the front porch of my house, a little girl of about 8 or 9 came to my house and she asked me, "Can I please see your father?" I didn't know who this girl was, but I said yes, and I took her to my father's bedroom where he was resting. This girl pulled up a small stool and sat next to him, and she started talking about Bhagavan. So she said, "Have you heard of the Sai Baba of Puttaparthi? He has got this big curly mop of hair. He wears red silk robes and he does miracles. He cures people." So many things she started to say about Bhagavan. And then she told him, "If you can get out of this bed, will you promise me that you will go and have his darshan?" My father would do anything to get out of bed, and so he said, "Yes, I promise. I will surely go and see him if I get well now." And then she gave him a small packet of vibhuti and she said, "Take a pinch of this in a glass of water every day, and very soon you will be fine." And then she walked out of the house and we never saw her anymore. My father started to diligently take the vibhuti in a glass of water, and in about 5-10 days, he was completely well. His doctor, when he checked his BP and his vitals, he said, "I cannot believe it, Mr. Menon, you seem fine. I think you can slowly get out of bed and resume your normal activities." So my father got better and he started doing his usual work. But he also made a plan with my mother because he had promised that little girl that if he got better, he would surely go and see Bhagavan in Puttaparthi. So they made a plan and they both came to Puttaparthi with a Samati in Trichur for the Shivratri that year. They had beautiful darshans of Bhagavan, they saw the Lingodbhavam, the crowds were huge, and of course they did not get any interview. While they were in Puttaparthi, they met a family from Palghat, one Mr. Menon and his family. This Mr. T.S. Menon was the younger son of the Maharaja of Kolangod, Palghat. Their house is where Swami used to come and stay whenever he came to Kerala. This palace is called Devi Vilas Palace, and it was huge and a lot of people could have darshan for Bhagavan there, and Bhagavan was very well accommodated in the palace. So they became friends with my father and mother, and they kept in contact. It was the 14th of April or 15th when it is our new year called Vishu. We Malayalis celebrate it, we wear new clothes, we burst crackers. It's almost like a Deepavali. And we have a very big feast. All the relatives and neighbors are all invited for a sumptuous vegetarian meal. In our house, we had, it is a traditional house. So in our house, we had a separate puja room where my mother in the early morning after a bath would light the lamp and do the puja. And after that, it is normally kept closed until evening, Sandhya time, when again the lamps are lit. And since we became Sai devotees with this trip of my parents, we started doing bhajans at home. Whoever was there, all of us children, my mom, and any relatives were there. We did bhajans every evening for about half an hour. We also started going to the Samadhi in Trichur on Thursdays and Sundays when bhajans were conducted in the Samadhi. I used to love going into this puja room because nobody went there in the daytime. And I loved the fragrance of the flowers and the agarbatti and the incense and all that. And it was very quiet and cool in that room. So normally I would take my books either to study or to read, and I would go and lie down there and enjoy my time there. So this day also, after this big feast, I took a book and I went to the puja room, and I closed the door and I was lying down and reading the book. I don't know when I fell asleep. It was maybe like 2 in the afternoon. I had this very vivid dream that we were coming to Puttaparthi. I could see all the landmarks and the dusty roads, no big trees and all that, not even proper roads, And there were just thorny plants on the side of the road. It was almost like a desert. And just before we reached Puttaparthi, on the side of the road, I saw a beautiful peacock dancing with its feathers all unfurled. And then we arrived at Puttaparthi. We were called for an interview, and in the interview, the first thing, Swami turns to me and he asked me, "Do you want to join my college?" This dream was so real and his voice was so clear that I woke up from my sleep. And then I went and told my mother, "Mom, I had a dream like this, Swami asking me if I want to join his college." We did not know anything about Swami's college or anything, much about Puttaparthi. My mother, she said, "Forget about it. We are a normal Orthodox family. In those days, it was not common for the girls to go out of the house and stay far away in a boarding school or any such thing." And my father was a very strict person. So mom said, "Just forget about it." A few days later, this TS uncle came to our house from Palghat and he met all of us. And then he asked my father, "Why don't we make a trip to Puttaparthi to see our Bhagavan? You bring your girls and your wife, and I will bring my wife and my son, who will help me drive the car the long distance." So my father agreed, and we took our car, and all 7 of us started on this journey to Puttaparthi on the 19th of June 1971. We drove and we stopped over at Bangalore, and the next day morning we started the long drive to Puttaparthi. So while we were driving, I would tell uncle, after this you will see this, and after that you see something else. And uncle was sort of surprised. He said, "Jayashree, have you been to Puttaparthi before?" And I said, "No, but I had a very beautiful dream of Swami and I have seen all these places in my dream." And just before we reached Puttaparthi, in the place which is probably the Gokulam today, there was this beautiful peacock on the side of the road, dancing with its feathers all unfurled, exactly like in my dream. Then we went and parked the car, and the men went to the gents side and the ladies on the ladies side. In those days, men could sit right from Swami's interview room door, and the women sat right next to the veranda on the sands. Very close darshans in those days. And it was about 3:30 in the afternoon. And it was darshan time. Swami slowly opened the door and he came and he stood outside the door. And from there, I was like maybe fourth row from the front, and he looked at me straight into my eyes, and the tears started to flow. I felt I knew this face. I knew Swami. I don't know from which lifetime, but I was very moved and the tears wouldn't stop. Then Swami turned around and he walked to the men's side. He went up to my father and uncle and told them, Vandacha, have you come? I will see you all tomorrow morning. And then he called one Mr. Suraya, who was probably in charge of the ashram in those days. There was no accommodation in the ashram. Most people slept on the sand under the trees. And there was only one guest room called the Bombay Guest House, which had a bathroom attached to it. So he called Suraya and he said, give the key to the Bombay Guest House to this family. They have come with young girls who are not used to going out for nature's call. And my father was given the key to the room. So we all stayed that night in that room. In the evening, we attended the bhajan and we went around the ashram, had food in the canteen and all that. We were so excited, we could hardly sleep. And this uncle's family was telling us about interviews they have had many years ago with Swami. Finally, the next day arrived and we had our coveted interview. To be continued. Sai Ram, please share, like, subscribe. Swami bless you all.